Good morning, class. This week we are going to continue learning about the Civil War. Last week you completed a battle matrix, right, of all the different battles within the Civil War. Hopefully by the end of the battle matrix you realize that the Union won, the North won. Now, one of the most famous battles within the war itself was the Battle of Gettysburg because it was considered one of the bloodiest and most decisive battle for the Union. At the site of this battleground, President Abraham Lincoln, on November 19th of 1863, he delivered his speech. This speech has come to be known as the famous Gettysburg Address. You are going to read the Gettysburg Address this week. However, because it is a primary document, one that was written in 1863, it can be challenging to understand. So instead of having you guys just figure out these words that we don't even use anymore, I have broken down the assignment to a few steps in order to help you guys understand the Gettysburg Address, one of the most famous speeches of our country's history. What you're going to do right now is you're going to open up the assignment, which is the student copy of the Gettysburg Address. First, what we're going to do is we're going to do some close reading assignments. You're going to read this multiple times to ensure you understand it. After that, I'm going to guide you through writing a summary of the Gettysburg Address, which I will use to decide if you understand it or not. All right, let's open up to slide number 2. I'm going to zoom in so that I can see it better. All right, directions on the left-hand corner. First, read. Read Lincoln's Gettysburg Address silently to yourself. Right, I'm going to read it, and then I suggest you pause me and read it again to yourself, okay? 87 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives, that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little know, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, on November 19th of 1863, at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So what I want you to do now is pause this video, and then reread it to yourself silently. All right, now for the second read, I want you to go through and highlight all the words that show time. Highlight all the words that show time. So like for the first paragraph, I would highlight years, right? Because it's a word that's associated with time. Then for the third read, you're going to underline 3 unknown words. There may be more, but throughout this whole document, I want you to just underline 3 words that you don't understand. Then using the context of the sentence that is in, you're going to try to determine the meaning of the word. What I want you to do then is to insert a picture on this document into the margin, maybe on the right, because I already used the margin on the left. And I want you to draw a line from the underlined word to that picture to show me that you understand the meaning of it. When you're done with that, you're going to move on to the next slide, slide number 3. All right, these are some comprehension questions to, again, help you comprehend, understand this the Gettysburg Address. I'm going to go through some with you, okay? So it's a bonus for you following along. All right, number 1, paragraph 1 has been broken down to the 3 paragraphs. What does Lincoln mean by 70 years ago? Well, I'm going to tell you. 4 times 20 equals 80. 80 plus 7 equals 87. So he was talking about 87 years ago. And what happened 87 years ago? Well, what happened was that the Declaration of Independence was written. You're welcome. You are responsible for the next question of paragraph 1. I'm going to move on to paragraph 2. I feel like the first question is easy for you to understand. Okay, I answered the second question for you already in your assignment. What 2 words does Lincoln use to describe the country? He describes the country as conceived and dedicated. Now the next question asks, what does he mean by using these words? What he means is, get ready to write this down, the United States was established for freedom and equality for all. That's what he meant, that the United States was established for freedom and equality for all. You're responsible for the next 2. I'm going to move on to paragraph 3. What does Lincoln not want Americans to forget? I wrote the answer for you. Lincoln does not want Americans to forget why the soldiers were fighting. Those are the last of the lines. He doesn't want to forget their purpose. At the end of the speech, what does Lincoln ask of his listeners? He asks us, his listeners, to remain devoted to fighting for a free country. President Lincoln asks his listeners to remain devoted to fighting for a free country. All right. After those close reading questions, you're going to move on to your summary writing. Again, it's been broken down for you. All right, so slide number 4, for example. Okay, it takes that first paragraph, and you're just going to read that passage over to yourself again, and then answer the guided questions, and then summarize just with 1 sentence. So for this one, let me zoom in. Who are our fathers? They're the men who founded the country. That's the founding fathers. What is being described? The birth of a nation is being described. When was this new nation conceived? In 1776. Where was the new nation? America, right? That's what we're studying. And why was the nation conceived? the nation was conceived for liberty and equality for all. I just answered the whole questions for you. Now, it says to write a one sentence, not two, not three, but one sentence summary for this passage. My one sentence would be simply, the new country of America was founded in 1776 for liberty and equality for all. Let's move on to the next slide. I went through and answered some questions for you guys already. So passage 2, I'm going to ask that you do that on your own. Passage 3, I'm going to help you out a little bit, okay? So the first thing you need to do is you're going to read it to yourself. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, for above our poor power to add or detract. The world would little note nor long remember what we say here, but can never forget what they did here. Who are we talking about? Americans. What can or can we not do in this case? We cannot honor the battleground. This took place during the Civil War. Where did this take place? It is called the Gettysburg Address. It took place in Gettysburg. Why? Why can we, regular Americans, cannot honor the battleground? Because the soldiers who fought and died at this battle, they already honored the ground at Gettysburg. That's what the president was trying to say at the time. So a one sentence summary that I would write and that you're free to borrow is Americans cannot honor the battleground. Americans cannot honor the battlefield ground at Gettysburg because the soldiers who fought and died during the Civil War have already honored it with their lives. You're going to repeat the same thing for the next passage. And when you're done with that, you will have 4 sentences. You're going to combine those 4 sentences to write one complete summary of the Gettysburg Address. And then you'll be done. That's it. Again, if you have any questions, please email me or please text me on Remind Mondays through Friday from 10 to 5. I will see you guys soon. Bye.